We will be speaking on the right to exercise personal liberties versus the need for habilitation. For the pro-personal liberty side, we have Christy.
Hi.
Savannah.
Hi.
And Heather.
Hi.
On the attacking side, we have for prohabilitation, we have Sarah.
Hi.
And Noelle.
Hi.
Christy will now begin with her claim for pro-personal liberties.
Thanks, Alicia. I just want to start out with a claim that says people with disabilities have the same human rights as everyone else. Oftentimes, they're unable to make decisions for themselves, but they're still allowed to have these basic human rights. And so I wanted to state the obvious that we live in the United States, and one thing that we've always striven for in this country is equality and human rights. We fought hard to ensure that our differences do not withhold our legal rights to make our own choices. All throughout our country's history, we can see men and women fighting for basic rights for all people groups. The ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. It became law in 1990 and was revised in 2008. This law states that discrimination against individuals with disabilities is prohibited in all areas of public life, so schools, jobs, modes of transportation, to ensure that individuals with disabilities are given the same rights as everyone else in these areas. In an article on autistic advocacy, one author says it well when he states that freedom to make choices is a human right. And it's not just our country that has laws like these. There are international human rights laws all over the world to protect people's rights to make decisions in their own life. Decisions on everything from choosing their own health care to deciding on who they want to marry. This author also claims that as adults without disabilities, we can easily take for granted the right to make our own decisions, and that we don't often understand the fact that in a lot of cases, adults with disabilities aren't even considered, and their decisions are just made for them. And in cases, if an individual is determined to have a greater cognitive impairment, then this will be necessary. But for adults who can make some of their own decisions, this is a human right where they need to be given the proper supports and education to make some of their own decisions. I wanted to present the case of Margaret Hatch. She goes by Jenny. She was a 29-year-old woman with Down syndrome, and she went to court against her parents, claiming that she had received abuse under their care for years. And she was pleading with the court for the chance to choose her own guardians in an effort to one day be able to be on her own and making decisions for herself. Jenny had friends, a job, and was a part of her community at this point, and life with her parents and under their guardianship meant that these things could just be taken away from her. Her parents held the complete power over her biggest decisions. And this was something that they had abused in the past. So the court ended up interviewing Jenny multiple times, and after 6 days of trial, they deemed that she was competent to the degree that she could decide her own guardianship, with the plan of helping her to grow to be more autonomous in the future. So this case should make us stop and consider other individuals who are out there who wouldn't necessarily choose to be in the position that they're in and might feel powerless and voiceless as these decisions are all just being made for them. They're dismissed and not given consideration when it comes to their equal rights as a human being. The BACB Code of Ethics Code 2.05 is set up for the rights and prerogatives of clients, stating that a behavior analyst has the responsibility to support their clients' legal rights. So I believe that this means that as future behavior analysts, we ensure that our clients have the proper supports in place to help them make decisions for themselves, however big or small these decisions may be. Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you, Christy. Sarah will now make her claim for prohabilitation.
Thank you. I'll be discussing how habilitation should not be viewed as a human rights disgrace. Instead, habilitation should be viewed with a human rights-based approach by putting the goals of the client first and using an effective treatment based on research. In 2006, at the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, a treaty was created. And in this treaty, it stated that the objective of habilitation is to enable persons with disabilities to attain and maintain maximum independence, full physical, mental, social, and vocational ability, and full inclusion and participation in all aspects of life. So going off of this definition, then, habilitation is a basic right that everyone should be entitled to. Persons with disabilities have the same rights as every other person, but the ways in which they achieve their life goals, how they learn, how they communicate, how they interact with the physical environment, and how they interact socially differ for a variety of reasons. The process of habilitation is designed to provide an individualized approach that utilizes strategies and tools as well as resources to assist that person with disabilities in achieving the objectives that they set for themselves. These objectives could be as simple as riding the bus across town or as complex as becoming a world famous rocket scientist. Persons with intellectual disabilities are vulnerable to human rights violations committed in the name of habilitation. Habilitation must always be based on the goals and preferences that are expressed by the person who is receiving the habilitation services, and not solely on the parents or guardians and what they think is best for their child. Persons with intellectual disabilities have been subjected in the past to programs and therapies that were intended not to help them achieve what they want, but rather to change them in a way that the person may not wish to be changed. Persons with intellectual disabilities are sometimes assumed to not know what is good for them or to be incapable of defining reasonable goals for themselves. This is not how habilitative services have been set up. These are cases or examples of practitioners that were operating in error and in violation of ethical standards. If we look at the BACB and their ethical and compliance codes, we can find in Code 2.09, which addresses treatment, intervention, efficacy. Part A of this code states that clients have a right to effective treatment, and this is based on the research literature and adapted to the individual client. Behavior analysts always have the obligation to advocate for and educate the client about scientifically supported, most effective treatment procedures. So if we're operating in compliance with our ethical codes, then habilitation is a right that the client has because it is an effective treatment when used appropriately and based off of what that individual client needs to succeed in life. So again, I stand strong that habilitation must not be viewed as a human rights disgrace. Instead, habilitation should be taken with a human rights-based approach by putting the goals of the clients first and using an effective research-backed treatment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Heather will now present for pro-liberty of choice making.
Hi, I'd like to share a visual with you about pro-choice making. This is an individual that has many different options. The topic of choice making has a lot to do with offering different options using self-determination and initiative. People may need support in the community, but overall feel more empowered if they have options. It is not necessary that the person be fully independent to participate in the community. They can see the environment and alter their decisions based on observations. The basic requirement for self-determination comes from making informed choices. The benefit of choice making is a higher correlation to quality of life. People who live in the community and have choices in daily living activities have higher scores on quality of life. Choice making is used for increased task engagement, improving academic scores, improving behavioral issues, and developing communication. Freedom and opportunity are allowed if the person is entitled to choice. All people should have the right to make choices regarding to their life and where they live, work, and go in the community. People without choices live in a more restricted living situation. Choice making increases independence and lets them choose where they will live. This results in positive outcomes. Some disabled people have challenges expressing their needs and wants and often lack expressive communication, and they need support. This does not mean that they can't live in the community. The teams must work together to make it happen. The method of working together in teams is by using preference assessment and informal methods such as picture cards of objects. The cards may be used in an environment where the objects are not readily available. By direct observation, they can use this to assess choices of people with single, paired, and multiple stimuli. People can also teach choice making so that they can safely and responsibly live in the community. The team must be integrated with the person into making daily contacts such as leisure time, snack and dinner time, and employment options. They can also choose music or TV, painting or drawing, or other hobbies. Some people think that disabled people cannot be consistent in choice making. People with disabilities are able to learn and develop the ability to be purposeful in their choice making. This increases the ability to order food and drink in a restaurant, for example, choose sensory stimulation, and find their own employment. People with disabilities can learn to live autonomously and have a fulfilling life. Back to you, Alicia.
Thank you, Heather. Sarah will now present again for the pro-habilitation side.
Thank you. I'll be discussing now how habilitation does offer choices to persons with disabilities, as well as helps them target specific skills that are needed to improve functional skills to be better equipped for the integration into community. So I did a little bit of informal research where I tried to look up different companies and organizations that do offer day habilitation services, both in my area and nationally in the United States. So I found one that is a multi-state company. It's called To the Rescue, and they offer comprehensive life services. They recently published an article that addressed some common misconceptions that people have about habilitation day services. They explained that day habilitation programs are not only for individuals who have significant physical or intellectual disabilities. The reality is the service supports people with a variety of disabilities, including mental illness, such as depression, anxiety, and even substance abuse. Day habilitation programs offer a safe and supportive environment where everyone is welcome and participants choose what programs best support their needs. So some programs that they offer are, they can contribute significantly to community through service projects like at local animal shelters. They can participate in home delivered meal programs and visit nursing home residents, and they can help stock food pantries. They even have opportunities to attend community art and music festivals. They also offer a lot of engaging activities for clients, as well as keeps clients occupied, so it reduces some of the burdens for families. So families know that the client is safe, their child is safe during the day. They don't have to worry about them. When the clients are in a habilitation setting, they can be provided with choice activities or hobbies, or even promoted to kind of explore a new hobby. A day habilitation center can directly be applied to one of the BACB ethics codes 4.02 and 4.03. So code 4.02 involves clients in planning and consent. So this code states that behavior analysts involve the client in planning of and consent for behavior change programs. So in a day habilitation setting, the client is able to choose what they want and kind of plan their program with the help of a behavior analyst or the program personnel and staff. 4.03 code states that a behavior analyst must tailor behavior change programs to the unique behaviors, environmental variables, assessment results, and the goals of each client. So in order for the behavior analyst to be ethical, they need to take the goals of the client into the program. In New York State, the Office of People with Developmental Disability explains that community habilitation services can be delivered in a variety of places. And this could even include the individual's home. So they don't necessarily have to go to a day habilitation center to receive services. And supports include adaptive skill development, assistance with activities of daily living, community inclusion, relationship building, training and support for independence in travel and transportation, as well as adult educational supports, further development of social skills. Habilitation services also provide pre-vocational services. So this is helping the client get into the workforce and be as independent as possible. Providing a person with disabilities with a variety of experiences and the opportunity to engage with peers, as well as exposures to new hobbies, greatly improves the quality of life in a person with disabilities. In a study by Podgorski et al., which was done in 2004, researchers introduced a 12-week program on physical activity at a day habilitation center with older adults that had intellectual disabilities. The purpose of this study was to determine whether the intervention could positively impact physical function in this population and if the clients would end up choosing to participate in physical activity sessions after the study was completed. The findings indicated that 92% of the participants experienced improvements in at least one domain of physical function, and they saw that participants were able to sustain functional gains 1 year after the study ended. So it showed that it generalized for the remainder of the year. Habilitation offers choices to persons with disabilities as well as targets those specific skills that they need to equipped for integration to community. So habilitation is a good thing that does offer choices for the clients. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Savannah will now present her claim for pro-personal liberties.
Thank you. The point that I want to make is that a client has the right to deny treatment that they are offered. The Code of Ethics 2.09a states that the client has the right to deny a treatment that they do not want to complete or that they do not believe will benefit them. I think that as a behavior analyst, it is important for us to remember that the client is the one that is undergoing the treatment, and they should have a voice in what treatment they are being put through. Swift and Callahan completed a meta-analysis study about the impact when a client has a treatment preference. When a client chooses their treatment and it is one that they prefer, they were half as likely to drop out of the treatment compared with the clients who did not receive a preferred treatment. I think that this is definitely a good point when looking at pro-personal liberties because the clients that preferred their treatment plan for the most part stayed with the treatment, whereas those who were given a treatment plan that was not of preference were more likely to withdraw from the treatment because they did not necessarily prefer this particular treatment. Bannerman, Sheldon, Sherman, and Harchick discussed that clients may not be motivated to achieve particular goals. They may resist teaching procedures. This brings up the point that when a client can choose their treatment plan, they are more likely to be motivated to complete the treatment that they are involved in. This makes pro-personal liberties important because the client is the one that the treatment is supposed to benefit. So they should be involved in making decisions about the treatment that they're being given if they are competent enough to understand what it is that they want their end goal to be. I think that personal liberties are very important for people with disabilities. Just because they have a disability, it does not mean that they should not be treated as a human who has their own thoughts and opinions. They should be able to have a say-so in what type of treatment and the goals for the treatment procedure. They should be able to be involved in and collaborate, if able, and discuss any issues that they see with their treatment procedure. One quote that I love is, "A person is a person no matter how small." The way I look at this quote is that no matter how old or young, or if the person has a disability, they are still a person and they are entitled to their opinions and thoughts when it comes to their treatment plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Savannah. Now Noelle will say her claim for pro-habilitation.
Thank you, Alicia. So since I am pro-habilitation, I want to talk about how the individual has the ability to reach their full potential. So another word for pro-habilitation is pro-empowerment. So when the client with developmental and intellectual disabilities receive individualized intervention that habilitation setting can provide, the clients can successfully remediate academic deficits. One of the BACB codes that goes along with this would be 2.09B, which states that the behavior analysts have the responsibility to advocate for the appropriate amount and level of service provision and oversight required to meet the defined behavior change program goals. So as we all know, early intervention successfully impacts the lives of children with ASD to make academic goals attainable. So one study that I found was called the Saturday Cognitive Habilitation Program, which provided interventions for children suspected of or affected by prenatal alcohol exposure at risk for academic failure. So in this study, it was provided on an individual basis, and each session was about 60 minutes long, and the children received 50 minutes of direct instruction. And all of the children except for 2 were administered a test called the Matrix Analogies test, and the other 2 were given the TORC-3 due to their academic ability provided by their parents or guardians. And so the study showed that the children made clinically significant gains in reading comprehension, mathematics reasoning, and nonverbal reasoning, but not in word reading or recall of mathematical facts. So there will need to be more studies that would gather information about the range of services the children received while participating in the intervention program. So the findings suggest that the individualized programs designed to remediate underlying cognitive deficiencies within context of a skill has a potential to become a model for effective interventions for children affected by prenatal alcohol exposure. So finally, helping developmental and intellectual disabled individuals with the needs like physical therapy, occupational therapy, behavior therapy, and other habilitative services will help improve the overall function of their lives and daily living skills. Back to you, Alicia.
Thank you, Noelle. Thank you both sides for presenting your claims. In conclusion, both sides make very good and valid points, and we believe that finding a balance between habilitation and giving them the choice, giving clients a chance to exercise personal liberties is what is best for the client. After hearing each side, we would like to know the opinion of the audience along with any questions they may have. We would like to cover a few questions today. The first one would be, do personal liberties differ when working with children versus with working with adults?
When working with children and discussing personal liberties, I believe that they still have a right to address their feelings, and if they don't necessarily like something, I think that their parents should still be involved and be there to help them process their thoughts and feelings and to help the child understand what it is they want and to teach the child that their opinion does matter, especially when it comes to their own life and the things happening in their life. When working with adults, I believe that as long as they are competent to make their own decision, then they should be able to do so. I do think that even if they are not fully competent, they still have the right to, in their own way, state their likes and dislikes about the treatments that they are undergoing. I do think that there is a difference when working with children versus adults due to the fact that when working with children, you have more parental involvement, which gives more collaboration and communication to discuss what the child wants and what is best for the child. Whereas the adults, you have the adults, and sometimes you may have a caregiver if the adult is not fully competent to help mediate and discuss what the adult wants.
Thank you, Savannah. Our next question is, how can choices be made available to individuals who have limited resources, for example, limited finances due to Medicaid funding?
Okay, that's a great question. Habilitation day programs accept a wide range of payment methods. Most accept Medicaid insurance through the waiver programs. There are also available community grants, which will pay for who are unable to pay. But typically, the hourly rate for a day habilitation program is less than what you would pay for a babysitting service. So especially with guardians or parents that are caring for an adult that has intellectual disabilities and they get nervous about leaving them on their own, this is a great option. Also, you don't have to send them for a whole day. It can be something where someone can come and work with them for an hour or 2 hours, and they can kind of target some specific skills. So if the goal is to get them working in the community, then maybe they'll start working on that goal. If the goal is just to increase their social skills or find a hobby, they might just work on that goal, and they could just come an hour a day or a few hours a week. The Medicaid office also offers information on home and community-based services. The home and community-based services provides opportunities for, it has a waiver that provides opportunities for Medicaid beneficiaries to receive services in their home or community rather than institutions or other isolated settings. So that waiver is available for anyone. They can apply to that. And again, these programs serve a variety of targeted population groups, such as people with intellectual or developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, and even mental illness. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. The last question is, do you have any personal experience related to the topic that you would like to share with us? Heather, I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
So working as a registered behavior technician, I've often used token boards and preference assessments with clients. And in this capacity, it's helpful. It's actually helping clients come up with different options to make choices in their daily activities.
Thank you. And we look forward to hearing your opinion and on this subject or any questions you may have.